Do you want to play a talker from the wrong side of the tracks who uses his talking ability to buff allies and debuff enemies and maybe shoot a little? Well, then I got the talent tree for you. So, the Colonist Politico talent tree, still to date one of my most favorite talent trees in the entire game, and it really feels like one that should have come out later because as the game went on, the talent trees overall just kind of got better and better. Some of these early ones are stinkers, but Politico, fantastic. In fact, it's the tree that really roped me into this game because not only do you get to use your talking for talking, most games you talk and then you wait for other people to fight if your talking didn't work, and then you wait for your turn to talk again. Talk your way out of things. Probably talk your way out of a fight, which normally I would just feel bad doing that because a lot of people, they want to fight, but it's my job to make their job obsolete most of the time. That's how it typically pans out. In combat, you actually get to use your talking to do stuff. So, we got Scathing Tirade and Inspiring Rhetoric, and they're kind of opposites in a way, similar to each other. We got Basic, Improved, and Supreme version of each, and with each, as you upgrade them, one, you get to modify the action economy to make it more efficient. Eventually, you can do both of these and do an action in the same turn if you want, or some variation thereof. It costs you some stuff that you might not want to spend every single turn you do it, but you have options, which is wonderful. And also, you get to help the dice pools of your allies for a time, so whatever it is they do, they get help. You do the same, but a penalty to dice pools of your enemies. And they also have a bit of a strain manipulation, healing strain of your allies, or adding strain to your enemies. And that last part is probably more useful than it seems at a glance because of the three types of enemies: your minions, your rivals, and your nemesis. Only the nemesises, only they have a strain threshold. The other two, they don't have a strain threshold, but they still can have strain inflicted upon them, and if you do give them strain, well, then they take wounds instead. And that's wounds, it's not damage. Damage goes through soak, then becomes wounds. No, it's wounds. They take wounds. You essentially do damage but bypass soak in a way, if you want to think of it that way. You just give wounds to the weaker and medium enemies, which is awesome. So you do damage, debuff, heal strain, buff your allies, do it more often. Wonderful, wonderful talents, and you get both of them and the maximum of each. It's really rare to have all three of one of these, let alone both. Also a really rare thing that this tree has, all 5 talking skills as career skills. We also get a solid amount of help with your talking checks. Your standard bread and butter help that will help you on a semi-regular basis might not actually help you on a semi-regular basis. It should, if the GM is doing their job right, but it is very situation and GM dependent. But it's sort of a basic thing that a GM should do in this game. If they don't do a thing, then you don't get the benefit of it. And it's obvious when you read it. Anyway, they also have a talent which will help them in a big way with only 2 of the 5 talking checks. It's pretty big, but it's relatively situational. I mean, depending on how you build your stats, the odds of you even needing this aren't that high, but, it'll be nice to have it when it's there, especially because one of these skills are definitely one that you don't want to focus on, or you don't need to focus on that much, so it'd be nice to have a little bit of help in that regard, so it kind of meshes well with the natural, I don't want to say weaknesses of the tree, it's more you're encouraged to focus in this area, and so this can kind of pick up the slack in a different area, if there is slack in said area, depending on how you build your character. Anyway, good bread and butter talking stuff as long as the GM is being a GM, then you'll be fine. Also, because you're all about using your words, expressing your ideas to solve problems and deal with people, you're naturally going to be a bit more mentally strong. Of course, you have a bit of talking defense, you're harder to manipulate, and also you have an easier time resisting or dealing with the effects of certain types of critical injuries, more mental, social effects of critical injuries, and also we have a little bit of help dealing with strain, some grit, a little toughen for your basic defense. Really, the grit and toughen is about what you expect from a non-combat tree. It's pretty average. We also have an active defense dodge, which is great. It's got a bit of a cost to it, but I like that there's a choice involved, and because it costs you something, that makes it interesting to use. One of my favorite defenses in the game It's just more interesting to play. But really, you're a more mentally focused character, so we do have a talent that allows you to manage a bit of your strain, and that's going to be good because Scathing Tirade, Inspiring Rhetoric, Dodge, all of these, well, at least they can cost you strain if you do the Scathing Tirade, Inspiring Rhetoric more often, which can definitely be a big help with this tree. You're going to be not necessarily hurting for strain, but you're going to be using a decent amount, most likely, if you want to make the most of it. And finally, we have one of my favorite talents in the game, Well-Rounded, which gives you 2 different skills as career skills that you pick. You just pick whatever skills work for you, have it be some sort of character background thing. Maybe you used to be a combat medic or something. Give yourself a combat skill, and medicine is a career skill, or whatever else. Whatever's useful to you, which allows us to transition into builds. So, we'll come back to those career skills with well-rounded. First of all, let's rate our characteristics. What's most important? Presence, obviously. Obviously, presence. Out of the 5 talking skills in the game, of which you have all of them as career skills, 3 of them are presence-based. So, yeah, pretty much every build, every person playing this, unless you want to go really weird for some reason, get a 4 in presence. It's really hard to argue against that. Not only will it help you maximize the amount of talking skills you get help with, but also we have 2 different talents which are based off of your presence or presence-based skills. So you're going to get the most bang for your buck out of this tree with a 4 in presence. Again, really hard to argue against that. Also, will and cunning are arguably pretty important. Will to help you with talking defense. Most of the talking skills would be resisted by a will-based skill check. So will's great for talking defense. Also helps with strain management, which wouldn't be a bad thing for you, especially if you're constantly putting out the buff, the debuff, and attacking or whatever else on your turn, and you're dodging. Chances are you're going to want to have a decent strain. So having a strong will is important. In terms of which is better, will or cunning, you get a little bit more help with the cunning-based talking skill, but as I said before, it actually might not be a bad idea to, if you are going to focus on one or the other, let cunning slack a bit, because that help with the deception is kind of situational, and just the way it helps you. The better you are at it, the less you need it, so I guess it kind of works out if your cunning deception is slacking a little bit. Also, one of your talents is will-based, so that's another reason to slack off on cunning in favor of will, if that's the decision you have to make. It's not like the check that you need, the coercion check you need to activate your talent is that difficult, but the better you are, the more successful you are, the benefits will scale upwards. So yeah, a stronger will is probably better if that's the choice you have to make, but a 4-3-3 in presence, cunning, and will, that's a perfectly fine build. My favorite, though, is if you take a well-rounded, one of those skills, make it a combat skill, probably a agility focus, like light ranged. That just makes the most sense to me. A diplomat who just has a little pistol for defense or whatever. Get that as a career skill, buy an easy rank of it, 5 points for rank 1, get a 3 in agility, and you'll be solid in combat, maybe a 2nd rank when you can along the way. You'll be solid, you can contribute. Buff, debuff, do some damage kind of with the whole Scathing Tirade wounds strain thing with the weaker enemies, attack. Lots of flexibility there. Other candidates for your well-rounded career skill, your free career skill, would be whatever characteristics you put the most points in, like presence for just about everyone, or maybe your cunning's pretty strong. Could be a 4-4 build, a 4 in presence, 4 in cunning, because you really see yourself as a big deceiver kind of a character. Well then, whatever presence or cunning-based skill you don't already get as a career skill, get it as a career skill, and you'll get the most bang for your buck out of it. So cool is a great candidate, which also kind of devalues will a little bit, because if you get cool as a career skill and you're almost certainly going to have a 4 in presence, well then odds are, depending on your build, your cool roll is going to be higher than your discipline roll, and one of those 2 rolls, whichever is better, player's choice, you roll at the end of every fight or structured encounter as a means of catching your breath. So that helps with your strain. You're going to be more free to spend your strain to do extra maneuvers, to to do more inspiring rhetorics and scathing tirades and whatever else. Because you know you're going to have a pretty good chance of healing that strain when you catch your breath with your cool. But will still pretty is important. The build that I personally would go with, I think would be the most fun. But to make the most out of this tree, really, I would go with a 4-3-3, if your species can swing it, and I would pick one that does. 4 in presence, 3 in will, and 3 in agility. With all that, you'll be able to do more in combat than the actual combat specs in the games. It's wonderful. It's going to be kind of tiring, but still. Wonderful tree. Absolutely play it if you're thinking about playing it. And that is it for today. Next time we're going to talk about the Scholar. Do you like this channel? Do you want to see more of it? Do you like this shirt? Do you want to see more of it? Namely in the mirror when you wake up in the morning, or whatever else. Well then, you can visit my Teespring store and order some of my merch. You got this and some other stuff. Buy it or not, whatever. It'll help. Alright, bye.